Hello and welcome to Thai 4, a podcast where I interview people about their faith and their religion and get their unique perspectives, including mine as well. My name is Hart Kenneth Olympia and I'm from 2 Legal Management 2. Thanks for joining us today. Our special guest is very close to my heart. She is a former area leader and sector coordinator in Basic Ecclesial Community, lector and commentator of San Fernando de Dilao Parish, and member of Legion of Mary. She is none other than my grandmother, Mrs. Flora Sige. Question number 1. What talents that you possess that you can use to express your spirituality?
Let me say this first. Once you have decided to follow Jesus and His words, which is the Bible, everything will follow. May mga gift na ibibigay sa iyo tulad dito ng karunungan, pagkaunawa, kaalaman, pagpapayo, katatagan, kabanalan, at takot sa Diyos. On my part, ako'y naging lector and commentator sa church and at the same time, area and sector coordinator ng BEC.
The talent I believe I possess, the one I'm capable of holding on to, is public speaking. Similar to my grandmother, our guest for today, I adapted this talent. I'm also a part of the lector and commentators during high school called SCAMULC or Student Catholic Action Ministry of Lectors and Commentators. And I was also a part of a religious organization which is called Quiropako, where we gather people of any ages teaching the Bible and other more activities that amplifies our faith in God. To me, this talent always has been one of the most profound mediums through which any person can express their innermost thoughts and feelings. In the same vein that public speakers use their talent to communicate or express an idea, whether personal, political, or falling under any other agenda, they can also use their talent as a means of communicating with God. I use the word communicating because the Bible perceives spirituality as the relationship between God and man, according to Harrelson in 1963. So given this context, I thought of my particular talent, public speaking, as a way to verbally establish and or strengthen my bond with God. Second question, how will your talent or talents convey your idea of, first, what is spirituality?
What is spirituality? Para sa akin, ito yung pagsunod sa kagustuhan ng Diyos. Darating sa atin na hindi na tayo magagalitin, payapa ang kalooban, maligaya ang ating pamumuhay.
This angle from which I will tackle spirituality is the standard perception, how people view it, which is typically from a non-religious lens. Spirituality is actually perceived as a heavily personal thing, defined as the recognition that there exists something greater than oneself. And as Spencer in 2012 said, something more to being human than sensory experience. Moving the discussion, what is the Christian understanding of spirituality?
Spirituality, para sa akin, mabubuksan ang ating kaisipan sa mga makakristyanong mga bagay, pagbabasa ng Biblia, at paglago natin sa ating pananampalataya.
So compared to the self-oriented definition of spirituality, like self-discovery, introspection, and etc., for me, the Christian understanding of spirituality takes on a more outward approach. It posits a definition which places a greater emphasis on others more than the self. The Christian belief states that spirituality is a way of life which reflects what is taught in the Bible. Because the Bible teaches the will of God, which is something typically far greater or larger than life. Let's now discuss what is the spirituality of truth.
Truth? Sa mga pangyayari sa aking buhay pananampalataya, nawalan ako ng takot na sabihin ang katotohanan para sa ikaayos ng pamayanan. Tulad ng kapag may meeting kami sa pastoral, nawala ang takot ko para ipahayag kung ano man ang sa pananaw ko ay tama. Bahala na mga pari na paglimiin ang aking panukala.
The spirituality of truth believes that God and man are not mutually exclusive or not separate. Man was created in God's likeness, and God resides in all of mankind. Beati quote-unquote says the following: "Our intellect allows us to believe we are separate, ignorant, or unknowing of our true nature. In truth, there is no separation. We are not separate from God, we are of God. God is in and of all. God is absolute spiritual truth." Next, what is the spirituality of mercy?
Wala kang sasandalan kundi ang habag ng Diyos once na dumating ang mga problema at mga kahirapan. Ngayon, yung habag ng Diyos, alam mo na darating, hindi ka mabibigatan. Andyan ang katotohanan ng hirap ng buhay. Pero magaan para sa iyo kasi alam mo ang habag ng Diyos ay darating. Ang awa ng Diyos ay andyan.
Now, the spirituality of mercy embraces the idea that helping someone is in a way helping everyone. It states that experiencing the love of God enables us to love ourselves. So much so to the point where it enables us, in turn, to express that love to our neighbor. From there, the cycle begins and persists. Misto in 2008 stated, "Mercy spirituality is about encountering the love of God. The love of God makes possible the love of self, and these together make possible the love of our neighbor. As the second greatest commandment goes, love your neighbor as you love yourself." From Mark chapter 12, verse 31. How about what is the spirituality of communion?
Spirituality of communion. Ito palagay ko ay ang ating pakikisalamuha sa ating mga kapatiran. Higit sa lahat ay yung mahina ang kanilang pananampalataya. Since nasa BEC ako, ay may mga pagkakataon na kami ay nakikisalamuha sa iba't ibang tao. Bigyan natin ng ang ating mga kapatiran na maihayag ang kanilang mga saloobin at handa tayo na makinig at intindihin sila.
I think that we all know that the modern age has encouraged and even enabled a heavily individualistic and self-centered way of life in more ways than I can count. The spirituality of communion exists to run counter to this dystopian view of the modern man by teaching us to make room for others, to bear their burdens as they bear ours, resisting the selfish temptations which constantly beset us and provoke competition, careerism, distrust, and even jealousy. With all the definitions being said, how will you be able to convey your understanding of spirituality to others and to encourage dialogue?
Nangyayari yan sa ang pag-encourage ng dialogue sa mga prayer meeting, Black Rosary. Since nasa BEC nga ako, yan ang mga ginagawa namin. And after that, may Bible sharing. And then, pwede nilang i-share ang kanilang life testimony. Mahabang talakayin pero hanggang dito na lang muna.
I feel that while I can convey my take on spirituality solely, I worry that I may not suffice to succinctly justify how I perceive it. Circling back to the earlier questions, this is where my talent comes in. What I'm unable to can instead be delivered through the words that speaking brings. The subjective views of different people by speaking out is an excellent gateway for dialogue and an exchange of perspectives. Lastly, what are the ways in which the Christian spirituality can be shared in culture, religion, and the poor?
Sa culture, marerespeto mo ang kanilang mga kultura, kaugalian o mga practices. Hindi natin dapat punahin ang isang religion, kung ano man ang kanilang mga beliefs and practices. In religion, maraming ways na pwedeng sabihin. Pwede ka nang mag-share ng words of God na nanganggagaling sa puso mo talaga. Pero bago yan, kailangan mo munang palalimin ang iyong faith sa pamamagitan ng pagsisimba, pag-attend ng iba't ibang seminars, especially Life in the Spirit seminar. Higit sa lahat, ang pinakamahalaga ay ang pagbabasa ng banal na kasulatan. Naniniwala ako na hindi mo maibibigay sa iba ang wala ka namang maibibigay, di ba? Sa poor naman, yan ang pinakagusto ko sa paglilingkod sa Diyos, ang pakikisalamuha sa mga mahihirap. Ang pagtulong sa kanila sa oras ng kanilang mga pangangailangan, especially spiritual needs. Handa lang tayo na damayan sila. Sila ang dapat bigyan ng halaga nang mailapit natin sila sa Diyos. Apart from gift-giving sa kanila at ang pagdalaw sa mga may sakit, kailangan nating bumaba sa kanila upang maramdaman nila na hindi pala mahirap abutin ng Diyos.
For devout believers, their faith and the many aspects of their personal lives are inextricably connected. They incorporate their faith in various elements of their waking lives and entrust these elements to the faith that they devote themselves to. In going about one's daily life, taking the opportunity to engage in simple but substantial conversation can open the door towards sharing one's view on spirituality through purposeful communication. And that's it. Major thanks and appreciation to Mrs. Flora Sige for setting aside some time to be a guest on my podcast. I invited you to do this because you have and are doing interesting things with your life, and I feel like I and whoever listens to this podcast can learn something from you. And for everyone, if you are hearing this message, you have listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We hope you enjoyed this first new episode. Once again, this is Thai 4 with your host, Heart Kenneth Olympia from 2 Legal Management 2. Have a blessed day.